Hi guys, this is Hjalte, and in this video series I will try to go over each class on Turtle WoW, covering all their changes, their new abilities, and how these might affect their capabilities in both leveling, PvE and PvP, as well as how they might create new opportunities for new builds and playstyles. And in today's video we'll be taking a closer look at the warrior here on Turtle WoW. The warrior here on Turtle WoW, and let's start off as we always do by reading the words of the developers. Warrior in vanilla observably has a healthy amount of working builds, with arms seen in leveling dungeons and battlegrounds, with fury in leveling and both damage dealing and tanking in raids, and protection in late dungeons and early raiding. And even better, these builds are fun to play. We know we can do even better, serving what already works while also allowing arms players to continue into raids. See Fury open up options for solo sustain in the world and battlegrounds, and improve protection's playstyle where we've carved in a niche in leveling and battlegrounds, as now offer a portion of the thrill and performance of Fury tanking builds. As such, the changes we've made to Warrior involve a good amount of shuffling class power around, and so it's easier to explain by writing the changelog in a slightly different format, as you'll see below. Alright, in vanilla, Warrior has always been the most popular class, and I think mainly it is because that most of the specs are fun to play, and in general the Warrior class is just a fun class to play, and they do become powerful late game once they're geared, or if you have a pocket healer with you. But let's see what they've changed. Baseline changes. Rage generation. In vanilla, the rage generation formula rewards players with the resource with a simple formula converting auto attack damage done into rage gained, only modified by a coefficient that scales the damage requirement each level. While vanilla's system shines for late 60 raiders, unfortunately everywhere else players are harshly punished and suffering rage starvation, especially for levelers that don't have the absolute greatest weapon possible, dungeoneers and fresh raiders in fights where you are unable to off-tank for the added rage income, and when dueling the more heavily armored and especially shield-wearing player classes. We do recognize the enjoyment found in top-end raiding, and we aim to retain a similar game feel there. To retain this and relieve the widespread pain points above, we find that a new rage generation formula that's calculated 90% depending on your gear and 10% of it is predetermined based on your weapon speed best helps achieve this. With the formula change, players will notice significantly increased rage generation in these cases. The top is the same, but the bottom has been raised up. So that's very interesting, changing something as fundamental as how rage generation works for the warriors. And I have a friend who plays warrior. I do not play warrior myself, but he can attest to these changes when leveling. Especially he can feel that the power that the warrior has gained while leveling up. You gain a lot more rage than you did before at early levels. And supposedly it should be around the same amount of rage at the end game as it was before, while, as they specifically say here, also helps the warriors mostly at lower levels. And then rage decay portion of anger management has been made baseline, while the in-combat part is compensated by the rage generation changes. So anger management was a talent right here. Increase the time required for your rage to decay while out of combat by 30%. And that has been made baseline because now this talent isn't here anymore. And we'll get to the specific talents as we move throughout the changelog. Execute has seen a rebalance, reducing its damage, reducing its base damage, while increasing the extra rage conversion damage. The values go as follows. So as you can see, the nerf to the base damage for all ranks, especially the last rank, is almost half of the base damage has been nerfed. But the conversion from rage to damage has been increased. But also Execute now has a 5.5 second cooldown, which is going to be really, really tough for warriors in PvP if you end up missing your execute, or it being dodged or parried or something like that. Maybe they should have done something with I don't know if they already have. I don't think they have done anything, but made it impossible to parry and dodge. Make sure you would actually hit in PvP with your execute. That would help this a lot. I think. Next up, your offhand weapon attacks are no longer guaranteed to land while your heroic strike is queued. That sounds like it was a bug from vanilla. Developer comment, while this mechanic promoted different gearing in comparison to rogues, it has proven to be quite unintuitive and clunky to use. To compensate for this change, the dual wield specialization now increases your chance to hit with your offhand weapon by 10%. More details on that in the Fury section. I don't know for sure, warriors, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm really guessing that this was not intended, and it's probably some reminiscence from vanilla. I don't know if this is also the case in vanilla actually, or if it's only local to Turtle War, but I'm guessing that it was in vanilla to begin with, and it's pretty much a unintentional bug that made it so that you wouldn't miss your attacks if you have heroic strike queued. But moving on, dual wield is now taught at level 10. Intervene is now taught at level 20 instead of a book item. Pommel now only has 1 rank and deals 5% of your attack power as damage instead of a flat value, and is now taught at level 18 and will be available for use in battle stance. So a lot of changes to Pommel. Slam is now taught at level 14 and pauses your weapon swing timer instead of resetting it, which means you're less punished for not timing your slam perfectly, because else you would want your slam to go off or start just as you finish your weapon swing, but now that is less crucial. Developer comment, this change will help two-handed warrior builds and reduce the unfair advantage of players with better internet connection. Yeah, I can see how latency would play into to this weapon swing timer. Rend now scales with your attack power. I think this is huge, because I think Rend was very, very weak in vanilla. Rage decay when out of combat is now consistently 2 rage per 2 seconds. Hamstring now has a 6-second cooldown. That's also gotta feel horrible for PvP. Already the warrior's biggest problem is being kited, and wouldn't this make the warrior's biggest problem worse or something? Again, here's something where I think this should not be able to be dodged or parried if you don't want warriors to unintentionally be nerfed in PvP, unless they get some other gap closing abilities that I don't know of, but we'll have to see as we move on. But I think this is a big nerf, just like the Hunter's Wing clip got nerfed, but then it got buffed again later to a 3-second cooldown instead of a 6-second cooldown. A 6-second cooldown I think is a bit too harsh. Within a 3 seconds, maybe if you're lucky you can attempt to hamstring 2 times as you gap close, but 6-second cooldown, now you just got 1 chance and you miss your hamstring, that's it. You're fucked. Sunder Armor's rage cost has been reduced from 15 to 10 rage. Developer comment, these changes were done to reduce warriors' stickiness in player combat while elevating Sunder Armor as a tool to trigger weapon effects in its place. I can see in terms of triggering effects, yeah, maybe, but the whole idea of hamstring is to prevent them from being kited as much. Well, anyway, Shield Wall is now ended prematurely if you unequip your shield while the effect is active. So you can't just use shield wall and then go back to your two-handed weapon or your dual wielding and expect the shield wall still to be active. Now it's actually stopped if you equipped or unequipped your shield. And here we get a glance of the talents for arms. Going into arms, the arms tree in vanilla did see plenty of use both early and deep, but builds dipping lower were really only done because of the cleaving power of sweeping strikes and or the healing counter on mortal strike. We fleshed out the lower half of the tree and have re-honed an ability earlier on in the tree as well. This, in combination with becoming the true home of two-handed slam builds, should now see arms builds function integrating, all while maintaining a similar power level for battlegrounds. Okay, yeah. Now we're going into the talents. Tactical Mastery has been moved from the second row to the first row, and that was this one, Tactical Mastery, and has been moved to the first row right here. You retain up to 25 of your rage points when you change stance, and it seems like the parry or deflection has been moved 1 row lower, so these two has just swapped places. Improved rend now requires 2 points instead of 3 points, and increase the bleed done by your rend ability by 20 instead of 35, and that is probably the nerf is probably because now it actually scales with attack power, which it did not before. So in order to not make this talent too strong and a must-have talent, so you leave some choice up to the players, they had to nerf this a little bit, but overall I think rend has been buffed, as far as I understand. And that, of course, is this one right here. And deflection has been moved from the first row to the second row. We already went over that. The amount of rage generated by improved charge has been increased from 6 to 10 rage. So that is this one here. A little bit more worth it to get this talent now. Deep wounds now deals damage every 1.5 seconds and lasts 6 seconds. Developer comment: this change makes deep wounds more useful, even in situations where it's quickly refreshed by multiple warriors, such as in raids, allowing it to deal at least a part of its damage before it's replaced, while doubling its output for situations outside of raids. And here is the deep wounds talent. And then we have improved hamstring, which has been removed. And that is actually this one all the way down here. Improved hamstring gives your hamstring a 15% chance to immobilize the target for 5 seconds. That has been removed, and we're not going to talk about the replacement yet, because we will get to that as we move on. New talent, counter attack, third row, keystone, a strike that becomes active after parrying in an opponent's attack. This attack deals X damage plus 10% of your attack power and immobilize the target for 3 seconds. Counter attack cannot be blocked, dodged, or parried. This is the one that I'm talking about. Abilities that can be blocked, dodged, or parried would be nice to maybe have implemented on other abilities, so it doesn't feel as punishing if you miss a ability that's really integral to the class and the way it functions in PvP. This one has a 5-second cooldown and has some damage added to it, 200 damage at rank 5 at level 60. And that is this one, counter attack. So it's 200 damage, static damage plus 10% of your attack power. So a little bit added damage from attack power. And then we have improved slam is now an arms tree talent. Total points have been reduced from 5 to 2 and now affects global cooldown of slam in addition to regular cooldown. And that's this one, improved slam, reduce the cast time and global cooldown of your slam ability by a half a second. And improved slam was over here in the Fury tree before, and it did require 5 talent points for it to unlock a half a second reduced cast time on your slam, and did nothing to the global cooldown. So a lot of buffs to slam. And two-handed weapon specialization now requires 3 points instead of 5 points. Increase the damage you deal with two-handed weapons by 6%, and now increase your skill in all two-handed weapons by 3. So that's very much the same as the Paladin. The Paladin got a talent similar to this one. It would increase the damage by 6%, which it already did before, but also give some extra weapon skill. So I think the weapon skill thing is very nice. You're getting a little bit extra help to reach this, to not get glancing blows, basically, all right? And just take a look at that one. There it is, two-handed weapon specialization, and it opens up for Master of Arms, which we will probably get into very soon. And this was here before. And I think we've skipped this one, this improved thunderclap, and it's because this was part of the changes they made before this round of changes. And on the original talent, reduce the cost of your thunderclap ability by 4 rage points, but in here it says also 4 rage points reduced cost, but it also increased the damage done by 60%. So now it has a lot more damage, and I think the rest is pretty much the same. Improved overpower is the same. Improved heroic strike is also the same. And then we move on to this one here. Pole axe specialization and sword specialization has been removed. There's a new talent called Master of Arms. 5th row, 5 points, adds the following effect to your weapon based on the weapon type. If it's an axe, it increases your chance to get a critical strike by 5%. If it's a mace, it causes your attacks to ignore 10 of your target's armor per level. If it's a sword, it has a chance you have a chance to get an extra attack on the target after hitting your target. And if it's a polearm, this one's quite interesting. Increase the range of your melee attacks by 2 yards. So you're getting a lot more range, which actually makes a lot more sense as well, because it is a polearm after all. So it's supposed to give you more reach, which it now actually does. So that's very, very nice to see some more interesting niche implemented into the game, because I think polearm before, we'll just check on that, I think it only gave you crit as well as axe specialization. Yeah, it did. So basically you get the sword specialization, you have your axe specialization, polearm specialization, and mace specialization. All has been moved into one talent and has been changed a little bit. So mace gave you a chance to stun the target. It doesn't do that. It penetrates armor, which also makes a lot more sense, because I don't know if you guys know, but maces were in Middle Ages used against heavy armored plate-wearing knights and other troops, because blunt weapons do a lot more damage through armor than piercing weapons, because they can't really pierce the plate armor. But anyway, that's a side tangent. But this has been moved into this one talent, which is quite cool, I think. It opens up for a lot more interesting opportunities throughout the rest of the talents, which we'll be diving into shortly. But I really like them combining all of this into one talent, so you're not really bound down to one weapon. If you are a master of arms, if you are an arms warrior, then you can actually be a master of different arms. So very nice, very, very nice. I really like this one. Sweeping strikes now cost 20 rage instead of 30 rage, and is no longer spent by offhand hits. So going in to get sweeping strikes as while dual wielding is still more beneficial than before, right? And here we have it. Your next 5 abilities and main hand melee attacks strike an additional nearby opponent. And before it would only say your next melee attacks strike an additional nearby opponent. So it's a lot more worth getting sweeping strikes now, even while dual wielding. And then there's a new talent, Precision Cut. 5th row, 3 points, increase the damage done per extra rage point spent on execute. So here we have the some extra increase to execute to compensate for the reduced damage, and for the cooldown they've added on execute so it can hit a lot harder. And I think it's bringing it up maybe a little bit higher. Where is the Precision Cut? Here it is. I think it's bringing it up a little bit higher than it was before the change. And I can actually see it does something else here, and cause execute to refund 30% of the rage spent upon hit. So they've added something to Precision Cut, which wasn't there before and isn't mentioned in the change log here. And I know they're not getting everything every time into the change logs, and I know they are constantly reiterating and changing these specs and making more changes to make sure that things are balanced in terms of not only PvE but also PvP. And the main focus, of course, right now, I just heard a podcast with the guys from Turtle WoW, and the main focus is, of course, making sure, first of all, that all spells and abilities work as intended and your buttons function, basically. And then after that, they'll start looking more into making sure that every class and every spec feels good and feels viable in both PvE and PvP. So that's good to hear. Moving on. New talent, Boundless Anger. Increase your maximum rage by 30%. Oh, sorry, not 30%, but just by 30. So going from 100 to 130 rage in total. And that is this one. It's funny, whenever I, in the talent calculator, start putting points in, and when I reach the full amount of points, so you can see the arrow disappears, but you need to get this one before you can get Boundless Anger. And then the next one, last one here, Improved Disciplines now reduce the cooldown of Retaliation, Recklessness, and Shield Wall by 12 minutes instead of 6 minutes. And that is this one. So another nice to have talent. And then lastly, of course, we have Mortal Strike, and I think that is the same. No, it's actually a little bit more, I think. A Vicious Strike that deals 105 weapon damage and wounds the target, reducing the effectiveness of any healing by 50%. And on the original one, it is a Vicious Strike that deals weapon damage plus some extra static amount of damage. So this, I think, would make Mortal Strike scale better to have the percentage, so it scales better into late game than having the weapon damage plus some static damage that the original has. So slight buff for Mortal Strike as well. All right, moving on to Fury. And here we have, you can already see a new talent right here. Fury Warrior in vanilla is famous for its performance and high octane gameplay in raiding. And we intend to not only keep this intact, but even enhance it with significant enrage uptime. However, in all other regards, this tree is lacking. With our talent reworks, ability tuning, and efforts to enhance the tree's neglected berserker flavor, we've carved an additional niche into the tree, and building into Fury should now be less questionable for use in leveling and in battlegrounds. In the end, Fury gameplay should remain very similar to the old playstyle, with new exciting enrage procs and better scaling in early game. All right, very interesting. There was definitely some odd synergy between the old talents where you would really question the benefit of those talents. So, but let's start here. Booming voice now increase the area of effect of all shouts, and its effect have been increased from 50% to 60%. Developer comment, all shouts indicate that this talent now also affects intimidating shout, piercing howl, and challenging shout. So before it would increase the area of effect and duration of your battle shout and demoralizing shout, but now it increases all shouts, increase the area of effect of all shouts and the duration of battle and demoralizing shout. So a lot more value from the first row talent here. Unbridled Wrath proc chance has been increased from 40% to 75%, and its effect is now doubled for two-handed weapons. And here we have the old talent, 40%, and the new one, 75%, and doubled effect on two-handed weapon. And what it does is it generates a additional rage point when you deal damage with a weapon. So 2 rage points when it's a two-handed weapon, and the chance is just a lot greater. And then we have dual wield specialization has been moved from the 4th row to the 2nd row, and now also increase your chance to hit with your offhand weapon by 10%. And they already alluded to this one before, but it is right here. Dual wield specialization, increase damage done by offhand by 25%, and has the additional 10% hit chance with off weapon. And I'm not sure, but I think whenever you do equip a weapon in the offhand, you are actually reducing your chance to hit by 18%. I think it's 18%, but I'm not sure, guys. So by increasing the hit chance by 10%, you're actually just reducing your hit chance by 8% from your offhand weapon, as far as I remember. The old one here only gave you the 25% extra damage on your offhand. So once again, a lot more value from dual wield specialization. And then we have improved demoralizing shout has been merged with improved battle shout into a new talent, just one talent called improved shouts in the 3rd row, possessing the effects of both talents. Yep, which is this one right here, improved shouts. Increase the melee attack power bonus of your battle shout 25% and increase the melee attack power reduction of your demoralizing shout by 40%. And that is these two talents right here that has been merged into the talent over here. And then we have Blood Craze's healing has been increased from 3% to 6% of your total health. Blood Craze here, previously 3% of your total health over 6 seconds after being the victim of a critical strike, is now 6% of your total health after being a victim of a critical strike. And improved execute has been replaced by reckless execute, reducing the cooldown of your execute by 4 seconds. Second point removes the cooldown of your execute. That's very interesting. So here, reckless execute, and now you actually have removed the cooldown on your execute. So that was what I was talking about before that I was worried about, but they went around it with this talent. It's another fix than the one I proposed, which was it not being able to be dodged, blocked, or parried, but this works just as well, if not better. But it's a very strong talent, so there's a lot of incentive to go down here, pretty much no matter what spec you are, just to get the cooldown removed from your execute. And if I remember, it was a 5.5 second cooldown on the execute, and that's just been completely removed with this talent here. Previously, it reduced the rage cost of your execute ability by 5, so a big difference. Now the new talent here sees a lot more value than it did before. Moving on to Enrage, lasts 8 seconds instead of 12 seconds, but no longer has a maximum of 12 swings. And that is this one here. Previously, it would give you a 25% melee damage bonus for 12 seconds or 12 swings after being the victim of a critical strike. But now it just gives you 20 melee damage bonus for 8 seconds after being the victim of a critical strike. There are no swing caps to it anymore, but the damage has also been reduced by 5%. And then there's a new talent, improved pommel for throw 2 points. Give your pommel ability a 50% chance to daze the victim for 4 seconds. And spellcasting School Lockout now lasts 2 seconds longer. So they are actually giving warriors another tool to slow the target instead of only relying on hamstring. And this might even be better because daze is not dispellable, and I think it actually I don't think you can even cleanse it or use freedom to get rid of daze. At least you can't if you get dazed by creatures in the world, and if it's the same type of daze, which I suspect it is, then it is not dispellable or trinketable. So in that sense, it's a lot more powerful. Let's see where it is. It's this one. Improved Pommel gives your Pommel ability, 50 chance. And also locks out spellcasting if you interrupt the spell, which is also quite strong. But I do not actually remember what the cooldown is on Pommel. Let's just take a look, see if we can find that. Yeah, so it seems to be a 10-second cooldown only, actually. So it's not that bad. It is actually quite strong. And now instead of a 4-second lockout, it's a 6-second lockout, and it has a 50% chance to daze the victim. I do not actually like this RNG. Like half of the time you're gonna daze the opponent and the other half you're not. I would rather see something that you could rely more on, because I feel like there is, and I've talked about this before, there's already enough RNG in vanilla as it is. So introducing more RNG, I'm not a fan of that. I'd rather see this be 100% chance to daze, but then for a fewer amount of seconds maybe. So you nerf it in that way. I do want my spells to react the same way when I press them, especially in vanilla. But that's just me. You might have a different opinion, and that's fine. Improved Slam has been moved to the arms tree. Yes, we already saw that as we went over the arms tree. And then the new talent, Improved Whirlwind, 4th row, 3 points, reduce the cooldown of your Whirlwind ability by 2 seconds. And here we have Improved Whirlwind, which is really nice as well, especially now that I actually do not see Cleave anywhere. This was here before. I can't remember. Did they mention they removed Cleave? Maybe that's coming as we move on further, but there's no more Cleave in the talent tree, which was here before. Improved Intercept has been renamed to Battlefield Mobility and now also reduce the cooldown of Intervene. And I think Intervene is a new ability that the warrior just learns baseline. And here we have Battlefield Mobility, reduce the cooldown by 10 seconds of Intercept and Intervene, and before it was just Intercept. And Improved Berserker Rage has been removed, which was here before. And now there's a new talent called Blood Drinker, 6th row, 3 points. While under the effect of Enrage, Death Wish, or Recklessness, the critical strikes with abilities cause your next 5 melee attacks to heal you for 2% of your maximum health. That is this one, Blood Drinker. So you're getting some health back while you're under the effect of Enrage, Death Wish, or Recklessness. And then we have Bloodthirst, which has been reworked. The following ability: instantly perform a reckless attack dealing X damage plus 30% attack power, and you suffer a self-inflicted wound for your recklessness, meaning you are reckless for attacking with Bloodthirst. So nothing to do with the ability recklessness, as far as I am reading this correct. And here are the damage values. There are some flat damage values, and then we have the scaling component, which is the 30% on your attack power. Developer comment: this self-harm does have the base damage, have the scaling, and takes your armor damage reduction into account. This self-damage can critically strike you and proc Enrage. This chance is equal to your physical critical strike chance. So you're going to crit yourself a lot, which might actually be good, because if you crit yourself, you are the victim of a critical strike. And when you are the victim of a critical strike and have points in the talent Enrage, your melee damage bonus is increased by 20% for 8 seconds. Also, you start regenerating 6% of your total health over 6 seconds because you just crit yourself. And now I'm wondering, does the Enrage here on Bloodbringer, is that the same Enrage as this Enrage? Because I know there are different Enrages, right? There are 2 different Enrages. As far as I know, there's ability Enrage and then there's a talent Enrage. But if you're under Enrage and this counts this Enrage into consideration, then you're also healing yourself for 5 attacks after you're being critically struck, because you get the Enrage proc, and each of these attacks heal you for 2% of your maximum health. So no matter how you put it, you're gonna heal more than you're gonna damage yourself. I'd suspect, at least. Death Wish seems to be the same as it always was. Flurry seems to be the same, it's just move or swap places. And this procs on dealing a melee critical strike, and if you are critting yourself, does that also count as a melee critical strike? Because if you hit your opponent with Bloodthirst, and then after that hit, you're going to damage yourself. And if that damage crits, is that gonna proc flurry as well? It might. I'm not sure. Some warriors will correct me in the comments. And yeah, we almost just skipped the talent, but here's the actual talent, Bloodthirst. And I see there's a little bit of a difference from what I've read on the notes and what is actually in the talent tree. So maybe it has been buffed a little bit, because I see 35% of your attack power instead of 30%, and it also increased your movement speed by 5% for 6 seconds, making it easier maybe to catch up to people in PvP, but also following the mobs or the boss targets, and making it easier to have more uptime on encounters and raids. But anyway, some very, very interesting changes to the Fury tree, and I've got a lot of questions, which hopefully some of you guys will answer in the comment section. So on the surface, everything looks really cool. I like the idea that you're not having to be crit by an opponent just to proc all of these things, which in original vanilla was quite useless in a PvE scenario, because the objective in PvE is to not get hit, especially in dungeons and raids, unless of course you're tanking, but in that sense you always also want to be crit immune to not get crushing blows, or crits, I mean just crits. So I would like to see a complete removal of this mechanic, saying after being the victim of a critical strike. I'm not sure if I like it, but I can see how Bloodthirst is a workaround, where it plays into all of these effects that proc off of you being the victim of a crit. So I think kudos to the Turtle WoW team for coming up with a very different but cool idea on how you can actually proc these things without having to get hit by encounters in PvE. Very, very, very smart and very, very flavorful. But moving on to protection, the last talent tree, and we can also already see a lot of changes just at a glance, but let's read the words. Protection is an odd tree in vanilla, with the top half offering good defensive options, while the bottom half offered basically nothing good until the capstone. In the interest of improving protection, leveling builds, and opening up new builds for endgame, Shield Slam, now trainable at level 30, has gained significant damage scaling, and alongside it, the lower half of the tree has been jazzed up with many new threat and damage options, as well as one relocated defensive option. Interesting. And I find it very interesting that they're leaning into protection as maybe the main leveling spec, protection leveling build. I like that. That even makes me consider trying a warrior and see if I can do some AoE pulls as protection, but we will have to check out the talents before. Improved Blood Rage moved from row 1. Now generates additional 10 instant rage. So I think it was supposed to say move from row 2 to row 1, because it's here now in row 1. Improved Blood Rage increased instant rage generated by a Blood Rage by 5. So that's a little bit different than what it says in here. In the patch notes, it's 10, but apparently that has been maybe nerfed. Anyway, Shield Specialization now generates 5 rage when a block occurs, in addition to increased block chance. So previously, it increased your chance to block with shield by 5% and has a 100% chance to generate 1 rage when a block occurs. And now it increased your block chance still by 5%, but now it generates 5 rage when a block occurs. So 5 times the amount of rage from blocking. It says in addition to increased block chance. So apparently that was the block chance that's always been there. I was hoping for a 10% chance to block. But no matter, it is still quite a bit stronger than it was before. Quite a bit more value going with the shield now than before. And then we have Anticipation, which has been reduced to 3 ranks and grants 20 defense. And I think the Paladin spec saw something very similar to this, reduced the amounts of points it needed and increased the amount of defensive stat it gives. And seems the warrior has gotten the same treatment here. Previously it was only 10 defense skill and now it's 20 for half the talent points. Improved shield block has been removed. Developer comment: this ability is probably one of the most overtuned single talent points in vanilla, as it doubles the potency of shield block, an ability which itself is extremely potent in its hidden feature of granting nearly any user immunity to both critical strikes and crushing blows for a single block. While this isn't that useful in dungeons and versus fast attacking mobs, this ability plus its talent grants 4.4 seconds of this immunity every 5 seconds versus the average raid boss. We don't want to take away this uniqueness from warrior tanking, but we also felt that this power being available in row 3 was a little too good. Instead, we've moved the power onto a side talent of Shield Slam. I actually did not know that improved shield block did all of that, because it only says allows your shield block ability to block an additional attack and increase the duration by 2 seconds. But apparently it did a lot more than that. Or maybe it was because of its duration. I'm not really sure I completely understand this, but it definitely seemed like a very powerful talent when they put it like that. And remember guys, I've put off warrior class as the last class because I do absolutely know nothing about warriors. My speciality is Hunter, Paladin, Rogue, and Shaman. Those are the classes that I do know the most about, so go watch those videos if you want more in-depth analysis of each change. So we will just be moving on to toughness. Now, additionally, increase the amount of damage absorbed by a shield by 15%. And previously, toughness would just give you more armor value from items by 10%. Now it also gives you 10% armor value from items, but on top of that, it also increases the amount of damage absorbed by a shield by 15%. And then the new talent Improved Intervene grants a 100% chance to gain immunity to movement impairing effects for 3 seconds after using Intervene. So that's very interesting. This, I think, Intervene can only be used on allies. At least that's how it functions in TPC as far as I remember. But I wonder if it functions the same way in here. Maybe they should have just put this movement impairing immunity on not on Intervene, but on Intercept instead of putting it on Intervene. So if it would say Intervene here, Intercept here instead, that would be great for warriors, especially in PvP, and would definitely make up for the fact that you now have cooldown on your hamstring. But anyway, moving on to Improved Taunt, moved from the 4th row to row 3. Oh, and let's just go over the talent here. Improved Intervene, 100% chance to grant immunity, to gain immunity to movement impairing effects for 3 seconds after using Intervene. And the Improved Taunt was here before and it's been moved up here. And then we have Improved Revenge. Now reduce the cooldown of Revenge by 1.5 seconds, in addition to its previous effect. Developer comment, Improved Revenge didn't see much effective use, especially in raiding, so we've added a cooldown reduction component that makes it more generally useful. So here you have Improved in Range, gives your Revenge ability a 45% chance to stun the target for 3 seconds and reduce its cooldown by 1.5 seconds. And Defiance moved from row 3 to row 4. Defiance, right here, increased the threat generated while in defensive stance by an additional 15%. So exactly the same as before, just been moved around. Improved Sunder Armor has been removed. Base cost of Sunder Armor has been reduced by 5 rage, which was what it did previously, if I am correct. No. Actually, it was only reducing the cost of Sunder Armor ability by 3 rage points. So not only has this talent been removed and embedded into the baseline ability, but it's actually also a little bit more than 3 rage points. It's actually 5 rage points. So a very nice improvement here. And improved Shield Bash, renamed to Gag Order, moved to row 4, now gives your Shield Slam additional 50 chance to dispel a magic effect from the target, in addition to he previous effect, probably say its previous effect. So Gag Order right here. Shield Slam has an additional 100% chance to dispel magic effect, to dispel 1 magic effect on the target, and your Shield Bash ability has a 100% chance to silence the target for 3 seconds. Previously, it would only give your Shield Bash a 100% chance to silence the target for 3 seconds, but now it also dispels a magic effect, so quite strong against casters, I reckon. And also improved Disarm, reduced to 2 points, now decrease the cooldown of your Disarm ability by 20 seconds instead. Previously, it would increase the duration of your Disarm ability by 3 seconds, but instead of that, it now reduces the cooldown of your Disarm by 20 seconds. And One-Handed Weapon Specialization moved from row 6 to row 5, which was down here and has been moved over here and is still 10% extra damage on one-handed weapons. Shield Slam moved to row 5. Damage of Shield Slam is now modified by your attack power in addition to shield block value, is making Shield Slam probably a lot more powerful. Well, let's check out the talent. Here we have it, Shield Slam. Previously, it was the last talent, but now it's been moved up here instead. Shield Slam slams the target with your shield, causing some damage modified by shield block value and attack power. This attack causes a high amount of threat and has a 50% chance of dispelling one magic effect from the target. And because of gag order, that 50% is now increased to 100%. And I think previously I was confusing Shield Slam with Shield Bash, but I see there is a difference. Shield Slam is this ability, Shield Bash is probably a baseline ability. And then there's a new talent here, Improved Shield Slam, reduce the cooldown of Shield Slam by 1 second, and using this ability will also grant you 70 chance to block the next attack within 5 seconds. And I actually do not know the baseline cooldown of Shield Slam, but that seems really strong with Improved Shield, which is this one, and I can see why they refer to this spec as maybe the go-to leveling spec. I can't really see how much extra damage that Shield Slam gains from the attack power. It doesn't say. It doesn't say in the patch notes. It just says modified by your attack power, but it would be nice to know by which percent or how much. But just knowing that it scales is quite nice. I also reckon we'll see a lot more protection warriors in PvP now with all these changes. And now we have another new talent. Repressal. Increase the damage dealt by your revenge ability by 50% and has a 100% chance to refund its rage cost if successful. If successful, does that mean if it lands, it actually just refunds the entire rage cost? That's quite strong, I think. Here we have Repressal. 50% more damage on revenge and refund its rage cost. So now you're not even using rage when using revenge. Seems quite strong. I don't know actually how much damage revenge does. If it's a flat amount or if it's some scaling with your weapon, shield, or attack power. But at least getting the rage back so you can keep just macro this into every ability you have. So you just use this on cooldown every time. So there's no reason not to, as far as I can see. And then Improved Shield Wall, move from the 5th row to the 6th row. Now reduce the cooldown of your shield wall by 10 minutes and increases its duration by 2 seconds. Developer comment, we found that the increased duration of Improved Shield Wall is far less useful than simply being able to use it more often. We don't want players feeling like they'd have to go deep into arms for improved disciplines to enjoy a smaller cooldown shield wall. So we've moved some of the power of this talent off the duration extension and into a cooldown reduction. All right, great. Previously, Improved Shield Wall was here, increased the effect the duration of the effect by 5 seconds, and now it increased the duration by 2 seconds instead, but also reduced the cooldown by 10 minutes. So lowered the duration and increased or reduced the cooldown. Very nice. And then it seems we have the last new talent, Defensive Tactics. While wearing a shield, you retain 150% of the increased threat generation from defensive stance in other stances. So does this mean you can just wear whatever stance you want and you'll still retain all of your threat generation? It seems so. I'm giving you a lot more freedom on which stance you're using while being deep protection. And then lastly, we have Concussive Blow, moved from row 5 to row 7. Now deals damage, causes a high amount of threat, and penetrates 50% of the enemy's armor in addition to its previous effect. And here we have Defensive Tactics. And that's actually, as we can see here, it's been increased to not just 150, but 180% of your threat generated now, also in other stances. And Concussive Blow deals damage, stuns the opponent. This ability deals high amount of threat and it penetrates 100% of the enemy's armor. So it's all of the armor it goes through. And previously, it didn't have any damage to it. It would just stun the opponent. It says 150 damage. Is there some scaling to it? It doesn't say if there's any scaling to it. Developer comment, another disparity between vanilla rating, deep protection, and Fury Prot hybrid is how Death Wish's damage bonus provides for a noticeably increased opener stab threat, while deep protection has no such equivalent. Additionally, vanilla Concussion Blow, as it stands, is simply a clone of the Paladin's Hammer of Justice, so we feel it warrants some differentiation. As Concussion Blow is less of a magical stun and more of a strong head-cracking blow, we have added a damaging component that half penetrates the enemy's armor and now apparently completely penetrates the enemy's armor. This design results in Concussion Blow being used for maximizing single target opener snap threat as the first global cooldown. There's a lot of nuance with the warrior that I am not aware of when it comes to PvE rating and how different things synergize with each other and basically just how the classes works. Because again, I am not that deep into warrior. Actually, never played a warrior. But these changes sound really good. They sound very interesting, and I even consider maybe giving them a try. Especially, I like the idea of protection being the go-to leveling spec. So maybe you could do some good pulls with protection. But before we finish off, let's just read the updates here, because as we already saw, they did have a lot of changes already. And sometimes the changes are represented in the updates here, but sometimes they're not, because they're not just... I think it's a lot of work going through all of this and changing this every time. And even now I see some things that are not correct, at least when I compare this to the talent tree. So, but let's just go through this. Improved shield slam effect duration and cooldown reduced from 5 seconds to 4.5 seconds. And the cooldown reduction on shield slam increased from 1 second to 1.5 seconds. And then another set of updates. Damage increase bonus granted by Enrage reduced from 25% to 15%. And Blood Rage now activates your Enrage. Slam cast time increased from 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. So there's a nerf here to slam cast. So it's no longer... What was it before? Was it instant with the talent? But now it's just half a second cast or something. Decisive Strike cast time increased from 2 seconds to 2.5 seconds. Decisive Strike. What is Decisive Strike? I'm not sure we actually went over that. Did we? Decisive Strike? Maybe we did. Anyway, moving on. Rent now scales by 5% of your attack power per tick of damage for all ranks. Mortal Strikes now does 120% weapon damage instead of weapon damage plus this amount. And that seems to be nerfed, right? Because I saw, wasn't it 105? Yeah, 105% according to the talents. According to the talents. I don't know how it is in the game, if it's been increased or if it's been nerfed. But as of making this video, this is a month ago, so maybe it's been nerfed again, that they just haven't had the time to update the patch notes. And defensive tactics multipliers have been raised to 165, and that's also not quite true, right? Because in here it says 180. I'm going with the talents. I think the talents are the most updated. So, but anyway, that was the changes. And Akalex asks, so no Tinkerer? Is he hinting on something? Something coming? You never know. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this breakdown of the warrior changes. I wish I could have had something on board with me to go through these changes. Somebody who knew a lot about the warrior, so I could actually have brought more value to this video than what I can with my knowledge on the warrior. But I hope you gained something from this. And anyway, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And until then, I will see you in my next video. Bye.
The turtles. Where are the turtles? Where are the turtles?
Come on, guys, get out of here.
Where are the